And we call that the legacy of slavery. So that's where you look at where we are today. 135 years later, a system that was put in place to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated, that Africa is forever exploited.
What if we told you that billions of dollars worth of wealth were slipping through Malawi's fingers? Not in broad daylight, but in carefully crafted contracts, hidden fees, and backdoor dealings. That for decades, the country's most valuable treasures, rubies, sapphires, uranium, were being mined, sold, and profited from, while the very land that bore them remained poor? Well, that era might be coming to an end. In a bold and unprecedented move, Malawi's President Lazarus Chakwera has announced a total ban on the export of all gemstones and precious minerals, effective immediately, with no end date in sight. This is not just another policy shift. It's a seismic decision that could redefine the country's economy, challenge the power of foreign corporations, and send shockwaves through the global mining industry. But why now? Why take such a drastic step? Let's find out. For years, Malawi's mineral wealth has been a paradox, immense in potential, yet barely making a dent in the nation's economy. While countries like Botswana and South Africa have successfully leveraged their natural resources to build thriving industries, Malawi's mining sector has been a case study in unrealized potential, questionable deals, and missed opportunities. And the numbers don't lie. Despite sitting on some of the most valuable minerals on the planet, uranium, rubies, sapphires, and green minerals like graphite and titanium, Malawi's mining sector contributes a mere 1% to the national economy. For a country that could be exporting minerals worth billions, this isn't just underperformance, it's a crisis. The truth is, Malawi's mineral sector has long been a playground for exploitation. Decades of poor oversight, weak regulatory frameworks, and opaque contracts have created a system where the biggest winners are rarely the Malawian people. The government has struggled to track how much wealth is extracted, exported, and monetized by foreign companies, and that's no accident. Historically, mining contracts in Malawi have been signed under circumstances that favored external investors, often granting them lengthy tax holidays, royalty waivers, and excessive ownership rights. Many of these deals were made with little to no public disclosure, leaving Malawians in the dark about who was benefiting from their country's natural wealth. But that's not even the worst part. There have been cases where mining companies deliberately underreported the value of extracted minerals, a practice known as transfer mispricing. Instead of selling minerals at their true market value, they undervalue them on official export records, reducing the taxable income they declare. This allows them to pay minimal royalties to the government while selling the same minerals at full price once they reach international markets. For years, Malawi's wealth has been slipping away, disguised under manipulated numbers, hidden contracts, and regulatory blind spots. This isn't the first time Malawi has attempted to reform its mining industry, but it is the first time a sitting president has taken such a drastic, uncompromising step. The move comes after late Vice President Saulos Chilima ordered a full audit of all mining contracts, giving authorities just 21 days to investigate ongoing agreements. The goal? To separate legitimate business operations from the companies that have been draining Malawi's resources without fair compensation. President Chakwera's decision to impose a full mineral export ban is an extension of this effort. By shutting down exports entirely, the government has created a forced pause in the system, one that allows it to take control of its minerals before more wealth is lost. This ban isn't just an economic move, it's a statement. It tells the world that Malawi is no longer willing to play by the old rules, that its resources will no longer be up for grabs through contracts that only benefit multinational corporations. But taking such a bold step isn't without risk. With all mineral exports now frozen, some foreign investors are already panicking. Companies that were dependent on Malawi's raw materials for their supply chains now face uncertainty, and some may attempt to pressure the government to reverse its decision. For Malawi, the challenge now is whether it can withstand the economic and diplomatic pushback that will inevitably come. There's also the risk of job losses in mining-dependent communities as companies wait to see how the contract audits unfold. But for the government, the gamble is worth it. Because if this move works, it could redefine Malawi's mining industry for generations. The days of letting others dictate the fate of its natural wealth may finally be over. The audits must expose the truth. The reforms must have real teeth. Most importantly, Malawi must prove that it is ready to control its destiny. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Malawi's decision to ban mineral exports isn't just about internal reforms. It's about challenging a global system that has kept African nations dependent on foreign control. For decades, resource-rich African countries have watched their minerals extracted, shipped away, and transformed into wealth that never returns home. The companies that dominate global mining don't just dig up the resources, they write the rules of the game. Now Malawi is saying enough. This move is part of a broader pattern that has played out across Africa for generations. Malawi, like many other nations, has been locked into unfair agreements where mining contracts have overwhelmingly favored foreign corporations. These companies have benefited from tax breaks, loopholes, and legal structures that allow them to extract vast amounts of wealth while paying back mere fractions of what should rightfully belong to the country. The model is simple. Minerals are dug from African soil at minimal cost, exported with little oversight, and refined and sold on the global market at exponentially higher prices. By the time they reach international buyers, their value has skyrocketed. But Malawi, despite being the source of these treasures, sees almost none of that profit. One of the most glaring examples of this exploitation is the gemstone trade, a sector notorious for price manipulation. Precious stones like rubies and sapphires extracted from Malawi's mines often leave the country at artificially low values, only to be sold at global markets for 5 or even 10 times their initial price. The reason behind this discrepancy is simple. A hidden web of middlemen and international brokers ensures that most of the wealth is accumulated outside Malawi's borders. While these foreign traders make fortunes, the country's miners and local communities remain impoverished, witnessing little to no development from the resources beneath their feet. But perhaps the most damning evidence of this exploitation is unfolding right now. Malawi is currently engaged in a staggering legal and financial battle against Columbia Gem House, a US-based gemstone company that has been accused of extracting rubies without properly compensating the government. The amount in dispute is nothing short of astonishing: $309 billion. To put this into perspective, Malawi's entire annual GDP is around $10 billion. The sum that Columbia Gem House allegedly owes is more than 30 times the country's total yearly economic output. It is a number so immense that it exposes just how much wealth has been siphoned out of Malawi over the years, hidden behind complex corporate structures and opaque financial arrangements. If these claims are substantiated, it would mean that Malawi's gemstones have funded foreign wealth at an unprecedented scale, while its people have been left with nothing. The government's legal pursuit of Columbia Gem House is not just about reclaiming lost revenue, it is about setting a precedent. If Malawi can successfully hold a multinational corporation accountable, it could send a shockwave through the mining industry, forcing other companies to rethink how they operate in Africa. However, history has shown that such battles are never simple. Corporations do not willingly surrender billions of dollars, and when African nations have attempted to take control of their resources in the past, they have often faced intense resistance. Governments that challenge multinational corporations frequently find themselves entangled in prolonged legal disputes, dragged into international courts where corporate-backed arbitration panels overwhelmingly rule in favor of foreign investors. If legal maneuvers fail, companies resort to economic blackmail, threatening to withdraw operations, cut jobs, and destabilize economies unless governments bow to their demands. And if that pressure is not enough, powerful Western nations often intervene, using diplomatic leverage to protect their corporate allies under the guise of defending investor rights. Malawi is likely to face similar tactics. Columbia Gem House, like any multinational, will not pay billions of dollars without a fight. If Malawi is to win this battle, it must be prepared for a drawn-out struggle that could take years to resolve. But there is one factor working in the country's favor: momentum. Across Africa, governments are pushing back against foreign exploitation, and Malawi's actions are part of a larger movement toward resource nationalism. Countries like Guinea and Zimbabwe have already begun tightening their grip on their mineral exports, refusing to let their natural wealth be drained without fair compensation. Malawi's decision to ban mineral exports aligns with this growing shift. It is no longer just about halting resource extraction. It is about forcing a fundamental change in the way Africa interacts with the global economy. If Malawi holds its ground, it could position itself as a leader in this new era of economic independence. However, the road ahead is uncertain. The question now is whether the country can withstand the immense pressure that will come from international corporations and their political allies. Will Malawi enforce policies that keep its wealth at home, or will external forces find a way to push it back into the same cycle of dependency? The stakes have never been higher, and for the first time, Malawi is fighting back. Malawi's decision to halt mineral exports has sent shockwaves through the mining sector, but this is just the beginning of a much larger transformation. The ban is not a permanent stop. It is a calculated pause, one that gives the government the breathing room to redesign the industry from the ground up. The question now is not just about stopping exploitation, but about what comes next. How does Malawi shift from being a raw material exporter to becoming a nation that benefits directly from its resources? How does it build a mining industry that doesn't just extract wealth, but keeps it within its borders? For decades, the country has operated as a supplier of raw minerals with little to no local processing, refining, or value addition. Malawi's rubies, sapphires, uranium, and graphite have been mined and immediately sent abroad, only to return later as expensive finished products, jewelry, industrial materials, and advanced components. This has to change. The government's new approach signals that Malawi does not just want to own its minerals, it wants to control how they are used, sold, and refined. One of the biggest opportunities for Malawi's mining sector lies in building local refining and processing industries. Instead of exporting raw rubies, why not cut and polish them within the country? Instead of shipping out raw uranium, why not process it into fuel components domestically? By keeping more of the mining value chain within its borders, Malawi could create jobs, increase revenue, and boost industrialization. Several African countries have already begun moving in this direction. Botswana, for example, transformed its diamond industry by demanding that diamonds be cut and polished domestically before export. As a result, Botswana now earns significantly more from its diamond sector than it did when it was simply exporting raw stones. Malawi can follow a similar model, but it will require investment in technology, training, and infrastructure. Processing minerals locally requires advanced machinery and skilled labor, both of which have been historically underdeveloped in Malawi. The country must now prioritize building technical schools, vocational training centers, and partnerships with engineering firms to develop a workforce capable of handling this transition. Without local expertise, the risk remains that foreign companies will simply return in a different form. This time as partners in processing, still taking the lion's share of profits. Beyond traditional gemstones, Malawi is sitting on a treasure trove of strategic minerals that are crucial for the future of global technology. Graphite and titanium, for instance, are essential components in electric vehicle batteries, solar panels, and other clean energy solutions. The world's transition to renewable energy is rapidly increasing the demand for these materials, and countries that control their supplies will have a powerful economic advantage. This is where Malawi's mining policy must take a bold step forward. Instead of allowing multinational corporations to extract these minerals cheaply, Malawi could position itself as a key player in the clean energy supply chain. By negotiating deals that require local processing, ensuring fair pricing, and prioritizing partnerships with ethical investors, the country could avoid falling into the same cycle of underpaid exports that have defined its past. China, for example, has successfully dominated the rare earth minerals market by controlling not just mining, but refining and manufacturing. If Malawi applies a similar approach, it could develop its local industries around battery production, solar energy components, and high-tech material fabrication. This would not only diversify the economy, but also attract a new wave of investors looking for stable, reliable sources of green minerals. Another major challenge Malawi faces is reforming its regulatory framework to prevent future exploitation. It is not enough to simply halt exports temporarily. New policies must be put in place that ensure all future mining contracts are transparent, enforceable, and beneficial to the country. One of the key reforms should be an independent regulatory body that oversees all mineral contracts. This body should include not just government officials, but also economic experts, environmental scientists, and community representatives who can ensure that mining deals are structured in a way that benefits both the government and the local population. Additionally, Malawi must introduce strict penalties for contract violations, tax evasion, and underreporting of mineral exports. Many companies in the past have been able to exploit loopholes, manipulate numbers, and bypass regulations, often because enforcement mechanisms were weak. By implementing real consequences for corporations that fail to meet their obligations, Malawi can set a new standard for accountability in the mining sector. While these ambitious plans for transformation sound promising, they will not be welcomed by everyone. The mining industry is deeply connected to international power structures, and foreign governments and corporations that have profited from Malawi's resources will not simply step aside. They may attempt to pressure the government into reversing its policies, offer misleading partnerships that only serve their interests, or use diplomatic channels to weaken Malawi's stance. Internally, political resistance could also emerge from elites who have long benefited from the old system. Many previous mining deals involved high-level government officials who profited personally while signing away the country's wealth. These individuals will likely try to stall reforms, sabotage enforcement efforts, or push for policies that quietly reintroduce old practices under new names. The government will need firm leadership, unwavering public support, and strategic alliances with nations that respect resource sovereignty to withstand these challenges. If Malawi caves to external or internal pressure, the reforms could collapse before they even take effect. Malawi's mineral export ban has already proven that the country is willing to take bold steps. But what comes next will determine whether this is a true revolution or just a temporary pause before business as usual resumes. By investing in local processing, leveraging its green minerals for global influence, and implementing ironclad regulations, Malawi has a rare opportunity to rewrite its economic future. One thing is certain, African nations are finally joining forces to reclaim control over their resources, and Malawi's move is a powerful sign of this growing shift. For too long, Africa has been treated as nothing more than a supplier of raw materials, with its wealth extracted, exported, and profited from elsewhere. But those days are coming to an end. Across the continent, leaders are making it clear that their resources will no longer be taken for granted. Malawi's decision to ban mineral exports is not just about fixing its economy, it is part of a much larger movement. More and more African nations are rejecting unfair contracts, revisiting past deals, and demanding better terms from foreign companies that have long dictated the rules. The old system, where Africa got the smallest cut while outsiders walked away with billions, is no longer being tolerated. Burkina Faso has tightened control over its gold, ensuring that foreign companies no longer dictate how its mining industry operates. Zimbabwe has outright banned the export of raw lithium, forcing companies to process the valuable mineral inside the country. Niger has reasserted its control over uranium, standing up to the very powers that have long depended on it. And now, Malawi has joined the fight, making it clear that it will no longer allow its gemstones and minerals to be shipped off without ensuring that its people benefit first. This isn't an isolated event, it is a continental awakening. One by one, African nations are reclaiming their wealth, and the more they stand together, the harder it will be for foreign powers to maintain their grip. The message is clear. The days of easy exploitation are over. Africa is no longer just a supplier. It is demanding ownership, control, and a future where its resources serve its development first. Malawi has taken its stand. Now, the rest of the continent must do the same. The world is watching, and for the first time in generations, Africa is speaking with one voice. The question is no longer if things will change, but how fast. Will Malawi succeed in transforming its mining sector into a force for national prosperity? Let us know in the comments section. Will external pressures and internal resistance push it back into the same cycle of exploitation? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. we have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.